Welcome back to Definitely Not Definitive. I'm Ken.
And I'm Bethany.
We're just a couple of cookie crazy kids in love that love reacting to Pokemon stuff.
Yes, we do.
So this is How Powerful is Every Pokemon Protagonist Canonically by JPR. And this is recommended to us by our YouTube members, and they voted on this video, and so that's why we're checking it out. If you want early ad-free access for our videos and you want to vote on the polls, go ahead and check out our YouTube membership. If you just sign up for the first tier, the $1 tier, you get access to the polls. If you want early ad-free access, it's the higher tier. And then if you want all of our Pokemon reactions, we also have a playlist in the description of the video. Ready to do this?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Which Pokemon protagonist is canonically the strongest? Every Pokemon trainer is a force to be reckoned with each of them being their region's respective chosen one who conquers the Pokemon League, an evil team or two along the way, and some of them even catch legendary Pokemon. So good morning everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
And today we're going to rank every single Pokemon protagonist from weakest to strongest, canonically speaking. Worth noting though, a lot of this power scaling stuff is very subjective, so for these trainers' resumes, I will only be counting events that each protagonist is required to do through the main story or through post-game content that is strictly related to said story. If any catch or boss battle is optional or an event or not linked to the main story in some form or fashion, then I'm going to count that strictly as bonus content for the player and not an event that 100% happened in the canon. However, content from animated sources like Origins, Generations, and Evolutions that reinforces stuff from the games will be counted as canon material. Some of you may disagree with that logic, but it's my birthday, so be nice to me.
Happy birthday!
I'm partying, but instead I'm making a video for your entertainment. But before that, a word from the sponsor of today's video, Factor. This fall, you can eat stress-free thanks to Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. For somebody like me who is always busy with YouTuber life and can't be bothered to leave the house, Factor's meals are super convenient. Just cut the plastic with a knife, microwave for 2 minutes, and that's all there is to it. No cooking, no cleaning, no hassle. Factor is also extremely flexible and lets you order anywhere from 4 to 18 meals a week, so you don't have to worry about being locked into one specific plan. Head to Factor75.com and use code JPRPoketrainer50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. That's code JPRPoketrainer50 at Factor75.com to get 50%
I read it
off
as
first
Pocket
box
Reiner.
plus 20%
Mini
Thank you,
Reiner.
Factor, for sponsoring. Let's get back to the video. Starting off in the bare minimum tier, these guys basically just do what's expected of them. That usually just means they've defeated their regional champion and entered an evil team. I know, these 10-year-olds are absolute slackers! And the first entries that we have here are Ethan and his counterparts Lyra and Chris. Now, yes, these guys do have the ability to win 16 gym badges, the most in the series. But that's more because they're privileged and live in a region right smack next to another one. Also, any protagonist who's won 8 gym badges could realistically go to another region and win 8 more. It wouldn't be any more difficult. Unless you're Ash Ketchum for some reason. I know some of you may be wondering about the battle against Red on Mount Silver because you probably skipped the intro of this video, shame on you. But to be clear, them beating Red is never actually made canon. The most the event has ever referenced is in Pokemon Masters EX, where Lyra is the one who fought Red, and she implies that she lost that fight. Though I hesitate to use Masters as a reliable source because that game is filled with all sorts of multiversal nonsense and characters owning Pokemon they never actually owned. But regardless, winning or losing that battle also has no bearing on the story going forward, so it's not a canon event. We know the battle happened, just not the end result. Furthermore, their battle against Ho-Oh and Lugia is entirely optional in the original games. The only legendary they are ever forced to fight is Suicune and Crystal, who in the grand scheme of things is relatively weak. They are also the only protagonists who have never canonically defeated an evil team leader. They just beat Archer, who is trying his best, just like me making this video. They essentially defeat a Team Rocket that has already been neutered by the loss of their leader, and since the Celebi event isn't canon, I can't count that battle against Giovanni in the past either. Even in their battle against Team Rocket, Lance does a lot of the heavy lifting in Mahogany Town, and while they defeat Lance later on, he himself is also pretty low on the champion tier list. Unfortunately for the Johto trio, too many of their accomplishments aren't properly defined or required by the story, which is why they rank so low. Advancing to the second tier, this is the champion plus other major accomplishment tier. Lucas and Dawn go in this tier solely because they are forced to battle one of the 3 members of the Creation Trio depending on the game. However, none of these catches are forced, so we can only count this as them defeating these legendaries. They also did receive help from Barry at Spear Pillar, and in Platinum they got aid from Cynthia in the Distortion world. They even got help from the Lake Trio when it came to resolving the actual conflict at Spear Pillar, so if it wasn't for them, they would have been absolutely cooked. Yes, Lucas does get Dialga in Pokemon Masters, but in this timeline, Lucas is not the protagonist, he's Professor Rowan's assistant, and again, Pokemon Masters. Sometimes a reliable source,
Who keeps
sometimes
keeping
not.
me on these?
Rosa and Nate from Black 2 and White 2 also go in this tier. Before they defeat Getsus and what's left of Team Plasma, they are forced to battle and defeat Black Kyurem or White Kyurem. Even though Pokemon Generations retcons this to Hilbert being the one to do it, but we'll have to ignore that since it doesn't match up with the games. While N
But I thought you're taking Pokemon Generations into consideration.
N is actually of no
rewrites
help to
it.
them in the final battle since his dragon gets taken away, leaving Rosa and Nate to fend for themselves. And while they can compete in the World
So I guess
Tournament
games
and
trumps
possibly
everything
win
else.
against every past champion, this is not required content and thus is not considered canon. Hence why they rank this low. And to end this tier, we have Florian and Juliana from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, these guys are a special exception in this tier list, and the whole reason why this tier has to have the name it does. Because while they would be in the tier above that includes every trainer that canonically owns a legendary Pokemon, since they have Koraidon or Miraidon, these two lack the accomplishment of defeating a major villain and being the main reason for an evil team disbanding. Yes, they do defeat Penny and play a part in Team Star coming to their senses to disband the gang, but it's not quite the same as being so strong that you literally thwarted a criminal and entered their entire
doing dance moves?
organization against their will.
Yeah.
You could argue that defeating the AI Professor and their Legion of Paradox Pokemon somewhat fills that gap in their resumes. But for all we know, this could be Grok from Twitter type of AI. It's not the same as going up against an extremely skilled and canonically powerful trainer. Also, they never have to formally catch Koraidon or Miraidon, it just joins their team through the power of friendship, which, while it's wholesome, doesn't necessarily show their skills in battle. It also just seems like becoming a champion in Paldea is a bit less of an accomplishment than it is in most regions, since they have the champion assessment system that simply bestows the rank upon them when they defeat Gita, which is not very hard to do. You can also hold the title of champion in Paldea no matter how many times you're defeated, and generally it seems to be designed for multiple kids in the academy to be able to do it. By the way, an awesome birthday present would be you subscribing to the channel and liking this video. I put a lot of effort into this one, so I'd really appreciate it. In the third tier, this is the legendary trainer tier, meaning in addition to beating a champion and ending an evil team, these trainers canonically catch a legendary Pokemon, meaning there is no option not to, or they've been depicted with one in a reliable source, aka not Pokemon Masters. The first trainers in this tier are the duo of Hilbert and Hilda, who are forced to catch Zekrom and Reshiram during the climax of the game. Okay, technically there is a way around it if you manage to fill all of your PC boxes, but that's not the intended way. In addition to having to catch one of the legendary dragons, they are forced to defeat the other when it teams up with N. And while they don't defeat Alder during the main story and his battle is entirely optional post-game content, it doesn't really matter because N already proved himself to be a stronger trainer than the champion. So by trickle-down theory, they're also above Alder. And by beating N and Getsus, they effectively check off all three boxes at the same time, so they're pretty goated. The main point against them is that they get significant help during the climax of the game, with all the gym leaders, Charon, and Alder all assisting in the fight against Team Plasma. This is by no means a single-handed effort. Next up are Chase and Elaine from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. While they do destroy Team Rocket like Red does in the main timeline, unlike Red, who is all by himself, Chase and Elaine are given significant help by their rival Trace, and even the legendary trainer Blue, who also aids them at Silphco. But what gets them this high is Elaine's appearance in Pokemon Evolutions, where it's shown that she does canonically capture Mewtwo. Without this piece of media, I would have considered this event to be non-canon and placed them in the lowest tier. But thankfully, the Pokemon company surprisingly remembered that they existed. And while they can battle Red and Blue in the post-game of Let's Go, like the Johto Trio, them winning is never actually made canon. Their win over Green is canon thanks to the same evolution short though. However, Green is a bit of a mysterious character who is somewhat separated from Leaf and is never explicitly stated to be a past champion like the other two, so it's hard to say how much weight this win carries. And to round this year out, we have Callum and Serena from X and Y. They stop one of the larger scale threats in Lysander and Team Flare. They are also required to catch Xerneas or Yveltal, and they obtain a Mega Ring during the main story.
Like Flower Pokemon.
I would have placed them in the next tier because mastering Mega Evolution isn't easy, but the fact of the matter is they get a lot of help from their friends during the Team Flare crisis. Yes, they catch the legendary and beat Lysander on their own, but as a whole operation, it's a group effort. On that note, moving along to the second highest tier, we have legendary trainers who also have another significant accomplishment on their list, in addition to all the previous listed accomplishments. Starting us off in this tier are Brendan and May. Now, if this were just the original Ruby and Sapphire incarnations, these two would be about 2 tiers lower. but their power levels were significantly increased in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. While they can still forego catching Groudon and Kyogre, opting to just defeat them instead, catching Rayquaza in the Delta episode is a canon event, and is reaffirmed in other media
Spider-Man
like
just keeps
Pokemon
flying
Generations
through.
and Pokemon Evolutions. Which also means that Brendan and May save the world not once, but twice over the course of the games. And they do it all on their own for the most part. They have very minimal help from outside forces. Steven literally says, "No, I'm not going down there, dog. Haha, good luck though, rooting for you." They also gain the power of Mega Evolution in these remakes, a highly exclusive tool for elite trainers. They kinda just do an absurd amount of stuff. Also making this tier by the skin of their teeth is Victor and Gloria. Okay, so like Florian and Juliana, these two are a bit weird and not as straightforward. They technically never battle against an outright criminal organization, just a few lackeys from Macrocosmos, Rose himself, and Marnie's hive mind of simps.
Remember that guy from
Rose
Pokemon
even
Generations?
admits that his skills in battle have sharply declined ever since becoming a league chairman, since he doesn't have much time on his hands anymore. Dang, that's a bit too real, but points for honesty. They do canonically catch Eternatus, but not without significant help from Hop and the legendary duo of Zacian and Zamazenta. However, the reason why they still qualify for this tier, in my opinion, is that they are also forced to catch Zacian or Zamazenta in the postgame. Yes, it's after the credits, but it's still relevant to the main story and makes them some of the few protags that catch multiple legendaries. Heck, if you count the DLC, then Cub Fu, the horses, and Calyrex are also required catches.
Yes, roar!
Which would give them the most canon legendary catches by a wide margin. They also defeat Leon at the end of the game, who is canonically one of the strongest champions, if not the strongest in-universe champion. So I would say those feats make up for all the help they get with Eternatus and the lack of any significant evil human threat. And the only others in this tier are the Alola duo of Elio and Celine. Although they do get significant help from Gladion and Hau along the way, they are the only protagonists to survive 3 major gauntlets against 3 different evil organizations. Those being Team Skull, the Aether Foundation, and the most impressive of all, Team Rainbow Rocket. Again, while this is post-game, this entire episode is still considered a canon part of the story and not optional content. This means that Elio and Celine take on the most evil team leaders by a wide margin. And this definitely helps make up for the fact that they don't take on a traditional Pokemon League or champion level trainer. Sorry Kukui, I just gotta keep it real, especially when you weren't even able to defeat Lance at Indigo Plateau. They also go through the Ultra Wormhole to defeat Ultra Necrozma, one of the strongest legendaries in the entire series, and they are forced to capture Solgaleo or Lunala afterward. They almost have enough to vault them into the top tier, if not for the lackluster league they defeat, and I also can't give them credit for mastering Mega Evolution or defeating Red, because those are both optional in the postgame. Also, having a Z-Ring doesn't earn them any points, because Z-Rings are given out like candy in Alola. Almost everybody has one. Same reason why Dynamax and Terrestrialization doesn't count as much as Megas do. And finally, reaching the highest tier in this video, this is the does literally everything tier. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, yes, Red is in this tier. And he is not overrated like so many say. Allow me to explain why. Like Brendan and May, Red does almost everything on his own. Nobody ever teams up with him at any point in the story to help in the fight against Team Rocket. He is literally just a kid fighting the Mafia. He also doesn't make Giovanni realize the error of his ways or anything like that. No, he straight up makes that man afraid of his power.
Nice.
And this is arguably the most powerful villain in the entire series we're talking about. He's scared of an 11-year-old. Furthermore, yes, I have kind of poo-pooed Pokemon Masters lore throughout this entire video, but one thing that is well established in that game is that Red is well respected by all the other protagonists and is considered to be even stronger than all the other regional champions. Him mastering Mega Evolution is also canon in multiple sources across Pokemon Origins, Pokemon Masters, Let's Go, and Sun and Moon. Across all media, Red canonically owns 4 different Megastones. He has Charizardite X in Origins and Masters, he has Blastoiseite and Charizardite Y in Sun and Moon, and he has Venusaurite in Let's Go. While the battles against him are optional, him owning and utilizing these items is fact. Just so we're clear on that. And because he also puts Z-Crystals on Lapras and Venusaur, he is the only protagonist in the core games who canonically has both. Him catching Mewtwo and the 3 legendary birds is also made canon through Origins. The main reason I'm counting Origins is because it's an alternate adaptation of the game universe, just like Generations and Evolutions are. To me, it's like how remakes take place in a similar but not quite the same timeline as the original games. It's even implied in the Gen 2 games that Red also caught these legendaries because they aren't in Kanto anymore, even though Heart Gold and Soul Silver also retcon this. Also, he's the only protagonist to get invited to the PWT in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. Why? Because he's Red. And I feel compelled to also put Leaf here because she should do exactly the same thing that Red does, she just doesn't get the media attention for it because she came afterward. And lastly, we have Akari and Ray from Legends Arceus. Are these actually just Dawn and Lucas sent to the past? I sure thought so, but Pokemon Masters also pushed back on that narrative, and that's all we really have to go off of, so I don't really know. But honestly, if they are time-skipped versions of Dawn and Lucas, then that's even more reason to rank them this high, because they have the same accomplishments plus 5 years of experience. Now admittedly, their main accomplishment does come from the post-game where they defeat Arceus and are allowed to summon at any time. But the post-game literally defines this as a main story quest, so it counts as canon. But if having control over Arceus doesn't make them the strongest protagonists, then they also defeat Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina all at the Spear Pillar. Sometimes without Pokemon, just going straight up fisticuffs against them. They may not have beaten a champion or an evil team like every other trainer does, but honestly, they don't need to. They have more than proven that they could do that easily.
I know we haven't played it, but that did feel like that was very impressive.
Battle and obtained Arceus, then that kinda trumps everything else. Send them back to the current day with the power of God and anime on their side, and they would easily topple leagues. And again, if they are just time-skipped Dawn and Lucas, then they've also beaten Cynthia already. What more do you need to be considered this good?
Cynthia's got sass.
Here is my final tier list. If you skipped all the way to the end just to see this and complain, then go back and watch the video. But that's all for today. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you guys next time.
All right, so definitely for like very experienced Pokemon players and people that played like all the games and whatnot to see that. I was hoping that when we were watching that, it was going to be kind of like maybe like some comparisons, not like just like, you know, like Death Battle does, but sometimes like Death Battle like kind of puts things in perspective. So it's just kind of like, oh, okay, you know, maybe if you haven't played the game, or if like, you know, maybe you haven't played this specific game, or you don't know like what these how strong these characters are, this would be like, you know, this feat of taking on these you know, characters and this boss is equivalent to, you know, something that's a little bit more widely known for maybe not everyone that plays Pokemon as heavily. Unfortunately, it wasn't in there. Like really, Red was the only Pokemon trainer that I kind of like recognized out of all of them. I mean, there were some other ones that we recognized, but they weren't necessarily listed as in here. Like they were shown in the video, but they weren't listed because I guess they weren't a protagonist.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think a fair bit of this probably went over my head, just not having played.
Oh yeah, mine too. Yeah.
But what I appreciated was like that little graph that he did at the end. The bottom is like bare minimum, and then the top part does literally everything. And I'm like, okay. I was like, hey, both of you are gonna get squirted if you don't stop. So I was like, even that, just seeing that graph, that visual that he had, which was only up there for a split second, but I'm like, okay, my brain can kind of put this into some kind of perspective a little bit, or like some kind of context as to who's really awesome. Yeah,
and I also like so there's the whole, you know, when you're doing these ranking things, a lot of it's just like, you know, like, oh, there's S tier and A and B. Like, yes, that's an easier way to do it, but I like the way he set that up too, like these tiers, as far as like, you know, does the bare minimum or like literally does everything. That just makes it more, I don't know, it's more fun that way. Like giving it like a certain ranking, like a certain more specific ranking than just a letter, or like one of the writers, and now he's a podcaster that I listen to like for sports and everything, is Bill Simmons. Like he kind of does the same thing whenever he does like these little like tiers or lists. He has like certain categories, and like he names the categories and gives them fun categories, and just kind of like, yeah, it makes it more entertaining when you're going off these listings, and makes it a little bit more like unique to specifically you and like your train of thought.
Yeah. I was surprised. Like, I just kind of assumed going into this that, well, Red and Blue will be at the top, or just Red will be at the very top.
Yeah.
And I was pleased that there are actually 4 characters who are in the top category of do literally everything. So that was pretty cool to see. It tells me we obviously already know that there is so much of the Pokemon world still left unexplored by us that we have to learn. But that was just kind of one of those key pieces where I was like, there's a lot more like super powerful, awesome protagonists in here than I realized.
Yeah, and also Blue I thought was going to be in there, but then I'm like, oh, since we haven't played all the games, I'm just like, I guess he was never a protagonist, and he was just kind of there for you know, to I don't know, be the antagonist for Red, but
be the thorn in Red's side.
Yeah, they push each other.
The motivator.
The motivator, exactly. Yeah, and also I think, I mean, there was no like specific time limit for this this video, but it did seem like because he's so familiar with it, and like I talk fast too, you know, went through it like very fast. So if you're not familiar with it, it was a little bit harder to catch up with as well. And I think that's just, you know, also just sort of a generational YouTube thing, like, you know, just TikTok, and just like people have such a short attention span that if you draw things out too much and, you know, you leave any space for any sort of silence, like we even do that in our with our discussions, you know, we trim it down if, you know, there's too much space in between what we're saying, so you don't want to lose anybody. But yeah, so it's just kind of, you get to a point now where just allow for some space and like time to people to absorb the information and not go so fast, and yeah, take our time some more. That's just a general PSA.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think that's specific to a YouTube thing. There was something I was reading about how, generally speaking, our society's gotten really uncomfortable with silences and like always feeling the need to fill it if one happens during, you know, a conversation or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think we see it bleed into YouTube, of course, and naturally, because that's such a reflection of society. But I think it even goes beyond that.
Let us know what you thought about this down below in the comments, and let us know if you have any more recommendations for stuff to check out from Pokemon. And thanks to JPR. Happy birthday.
Happy belated birthday.
Belated birthday, yeah. And thanks so much for watching our reaction for how powerful is every Pokemon protagonist canonically. But keep in mind
that our reaction is definitely not definitive.